So yeah, I'm here to tell you about the Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and Food Science, and it's the dietetic specialization. And before we go too far, I want to just take a minute to do the University of Alberta's territorial acknowledgement. So the University of Alberta respects the sovereignty, lands, histories, languages, knowledge systems, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit nations. The University of Alberta, its buildings, labs, and research stations are primarily located on the traditional territory of Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, and Anishinaabe nations, lands that are now known as part of Treaties 6, 7, and 8, as well as the homeland of the Métis. So, good evening, everyone, and I'll tell you what we're going to talk about tonight. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the profession of dietetics and what registered dietitians do, what our knowledge base looks like, and that really relates to what you're going to study at the University of Alberta in dietetics. I'll also give you some, I guess these are my personal thoughts. I'm a registered dietitian, about some of the things that if you answer yes to them, dietetics is probably a really great fit for you. I can also tell you a little bit about the career outlook because I know at the end of the day, everyone really wants to get a job. And certainly the career outlook for dietitians right now looks pretty fantastic. And then I'll take you through our program as well as our admission requirements and some of the pieces, just big overview pieces, I guess, around application and deadlines. So without further ado, maybe I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself too. So I am a registered dietitian. I did my undergraduate degree and my master's at the University of Alberta and loved every minute of the experience. It was fantastic. From there, I went on to work as a clinical dietitian at the University of Alberta hospitals. I literally went across the street, which was, I think I might need to branch out, and worked at the U of A hospital in renal with a fantastic team of doctors, nurses, OTs, physios, pharmacists. It was great. From there, I branched into community or public health nutrition and ultimately landed at the University of Alberta, where I'm the director of the Integrated Dietetic Internship, which is the practicum component of our program. Outside, and what really drove me to dietetics was a love of sports. I love sports and I love all kinds of sport. And so I was at a session, actually probably quite similar to this, where I saw a registered dietitian speak. She was from Calgary, working with all kinds of teams and sport in Calgary. And I remember thinking, oh, I want to do that. That is awesome. And so outside of my work at the U of A, I do teach sport nutrition at the U of A. We have an entire course on sport nutrition in the dietetic specialization program that students can take as an elective. I teach that course. And outside of that, I work with teams and organizations across Canada in the area of sports. So I work with the Edmonton Oilers Player Development Unit, the Edmonton Oil Kings. In Edmonton, we have a sport academy, Vimy Ridge Academy, and I work with the student athletes at Vimy, as well as individual athletes at all levels. I think the youngest group I've worked with is U10 Team Alberta Hockey, and I've also worked with lots of masters athletes as well. So for me, my interest in sport and health and wellness kind of drove me into it. And maybe that's where you are too. I know a lot of the students that I work with are really passionate about the idea of food, nutrition, and health. And that is definitely simpatico with what dietitians do. So let me tell you a little bit about how to become a registered dietitian and kind of what our profession really looks like. So dietitians, and we use the acronym or the credential RD, are nutrition experts. So our training really involves understanding the linkages between food and nutrition and health. So it's all about the science of that. We want to make sure that any advice that we're giving to the public or any of the work that we're doing with individual patients or clients that we work with is really rooted in science. And we work to help people make healthy food choices. we do spend a fair bit of time helping people separate fact from fiction. Unfortunately, when it comes to nutrition, there's lots of misinformation that people have access to. And so we want to make sure that people are making informed health choices so that they can keep their bodies healthy in ways that are likely to lead to that. Many dietitians often work as well on looking at approaches to support our vulnerable members of our society and to look at, what can we do to collectively take action on malnutrition. It seems unthinkable that in Canada we could have malnutrition, but unfortunately, in lots of pockets of our society, and sometimes even in hospitalized patients, malnutrition is an issue. And so dietitians work to remedy that. We want to make sure that everybody has the option to be well fed and well nourished. Dietitians work all over the place. Ours is a health discipline that has broad spread. So we do have many, many dietitians working in healthcare at the front line, counseling patients, assessing patients. As I said, I mean, I worked in renal or kidney care in hospital, but we also have dietitians who work in public health and disease prevention. We have dietitians that work in industry, in government, and finally in education. And part of our job as well is to influence government policy, develop and lead nutrition programs in the community. And some dietitians manage the business end of things, so food services in hospitals or schools or that type of thing. One of my friends is actually the food service manager for Disney in Orlando, which I don't know how I missed that job opportunity because that sounds pretty sweet. And we also at the University of Alberta have a cadre of dietitians who are nutrition researchers. So they spend their time as dietitians working on, what are the next things that we need to know or do to keep people healthy. And really, nutrition and dietetics are pretty broad interdisciplinary health science. So we have a really strong emphasis on basic sciences that in university, if you're coming to the U of A, certainly in the dietetic specialization, you're going to complete coursework in chemistry and organic chem, biochemistry, physiology, microbiology and food microbiology. Students also take several courses just on food and food science because you learn really quickly as a dietitian that people eat food, they don't eat nutrients. So we have to know how to translate the science of nutrition into food choices. So there's coursework that students complete in your first year. It's a really basic introduction, and you even get to spend some time in the lab, looking at how you teach people to prepare food. A lot of people don't know. But also, what are the cultural elements of food and the sort of psychosocial pieces of food also filter into it. And finally, lots of coursework on, nutrition, specifically in metabolism. The other area of emphasis for dietitians is really social sciences because we work with people. If you like working with people, dietetics is a wonderful, wonderful career because that's a big area of emphasis. Dietitians take coursework in psychology because we do counsel people and want to help shape behavior. We also help to work with individuals who have eating disorders, and we want to be able to understand the psychology of their illness and help them. We take sociology and a range of courses where we're looking at cultural competence related to food and community and people. Food is such a personal thing. People have great traditions in food. They eat, I always say that people eat, not feed. Like animals will eat just about anything if they get really hungry, but people eat to enjoy food, to celebrate their community, to honor their religious traditions. And dietitians actually have to understand all of that as well. So our program is a good blend of those interdisciplinary social and health sciences. And so if you like anything to do with any of these areas, you probably are a good fit for dietetics and careers in as a registered dietitian. So for me, when I look at, what are some of the things that would make you good fit, Communication is key. So do you like communicating? Do you have pretty good communication skills, or is that an area you want to advance in? Um, as a dietitian, I sort of jokingly say I talk all day because I feel like I talk all day to groups. We're either teaching groups, teaching individual people, working with other staff members or people on the healthcare team. So communication is a big part of what we do. And if you love communicating with people, that's a sign of good fit. If you're passionate about science, like if you're really curious about physiology and how things work in the body, you're not af like, afraid of understanding how, things move around in the body and it's kind of interesting to you. Chemistry, biochem, any of those types of things, biology is a good if you're in biology right now in high school, that's a course that kind of takes you into some of these things, and if you like biology, it's kind of going in that direction. Dietitians are also problem solvers for people. We, spend time looking at what are people's real problem, because sometimes the thing that looks like it's the problem for folks and they're having a hard time with something maybe isn't. And so, really being able to critical think and problem solve, paying attention to details, another thing that, our profession is really detail oriented in a lot of ways. And then finally, what do you think about people? Do you enjoy working with and learning from people, from all walks of life? Um, in healthcare, we offer service and care to people from every single age group, every single gender, um, every income level. And so it's a real privilege to be able to just kind of get to know all of, the people that you can meet as a healthcare provider and be supportive and helpful to them. It's funny in healthcare because sometimes the very smallest things that you do impact people really profoundly. They're so grateful and they will thank you. I remember as a student dietitian, because you do a year of practicum in our program, and I was once one of those practicum students, showing a brand new mom how to make a specialized baby formula for her baby because the baby had to be on a medical formula for health reasons. And it, to me, seemed like a fairly simple process, but she was completely overwhelmed, and it was for her, such a just a big deal that she now knew how to do this, and they were so grateful. She would send me baby pictures of how the little, girl was doing over, the first couple of years because she just wanted me to know that it all turned out okay, which was really nice. And so if you're really interested in making, meaningful changes, helping people make change to their lives, helping people become healthier, really advocating for health and wellness, then, we would love to see you in our program because this really sounds like it would be great fit for you. So to become a registered dietitian in Canada, and this is the same at all Canadian universities, you got to do three things. And in some parts of Canada, the first two are separate. In our program at the U of A, we blend practicum learning with your degree, which is fantastic. And so the first thing that you have to do to be a dietitian is complete an approved undergraduate degree program in dietetics. In Alberta, the only approved degree program in dietetics is the dietetics specialization at the U of A. And that undergrad degree really gives you the knowledge base that you're going to need to draw on when you get working with real people out in real world healthcare settings, give you that good basis in how to counsel people, facilitate change, manage programs. Dietitians even take accounting because in our practice, we often manage public health programs and they have budgets. So we have to know how the money works. So you get all of that and more in the undergraduate degree program. All students who want to become a dietitian also have to complete an approved internship. As I said, at the U of A, once you're admitted to the dietetic specialization, the internship is actually part of your degree requirements. So it's not separate. Once you're admitted to our program, you're going to, have the opportunity to complete the internship. Our internship is almost a full year long, and it makes you entirely practice ready when your program is done, which is so fantastic. You can literally, and it literally happens, students graduate, finish their last practicum day on a Friday. They will have a job waiting for them. They get registered with the College of Dietitians really quickly and might be at work starting, by the end of the following week. So our program is really designed to make you work ready. During that year of internship, students spend time working side by side, like almost sometimes it's one-on-one, with practicing registered dietitians in hospitals, healthcare centers, seniors' homes, schools, health units, food service operations, you name it. We have students this term. Some of them are at the National Sports Center in Calgary working with the sport dietitians there. We have some people who are in the summer going to be going to diabetes camp at Camp G. Nelson in Kananaskis. And then we have students at hospitals and healthcare centers across the whole province, rural and urban, and totally work ready when you're done. The third thing that all students have to do is complete a national registration exam. This is done after you leave the U of A, usually about 6 months after you leave the U of A, students sit to write the CDRE, or Canadian Dietetic Registration Exam. Dietetics like nursing, pharmacy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, medicine is a regulated health profession. Dietitians have to be registered with their provincial regulatory body in order to practice and work. In Alberta, that regulatory body is the College of Dietitians, and they require you to write the national exam to practice. Good news on that front, and something we're really proud of at the U of A, our pass rate at the University of Alberta on the CDRE is in excess of 97%. So virtually all of our graduates will pass on their first attempt. And the University of Alberta's dietetic specialization also has the highest pass rate in the entire country, which is really testament to the great training that dietitians provide during that practicum piece, and our instructors provide during the undergrad classroom portion of things. So everybody, wants to know about job opportunities, and I think that that's a really important piece as well. At the end of the day, you want to be able to contribute, you want to be able to make a reasonable income to support yourself. Right now, the employment outlook for dietitians is very strong and expected to increase because we have members of the baby boom generation who are set to retire over the next few years. And as a result, there are lots of positions that will become vacant and need to be filled by people like yourselves who will come into the profession. Dietetics is a relatively small profession, so there are a few of us in the health sciences that are smaller professions. We have the currently just shy of 1,500 registered dietitians in Alberta, and you kind of pair our smaller size with the fact that demand is growing, and that means that job opportunities moving forward are going to be great. In Alberta, most dietitians work in some type of a healthcare setting. It could be health promotion, disease prevention. It could be in a hospital, could be in long-term care. The vast majority of our work is done in healthcare in some way, shape, or form. Having said that, there are also dietitians who own their own businesses and work in, as a private practice. There are dietitians who work in industry for groups like Alberta milk producers, or for some of the food companies that you might see, they help with that. We have dietitians that work in the travel and tourism industry as well. The starting salary for dietitians, this is right out of internship, and as soon as you write that exam, you get a nice little wage increase. So coming right out of internship, starting at just under $38 an hour or $85,000 a year. And most dietitians work regular business hours, so you would be typically at work from either 7 until 3:30 or 8 to 4:30. In clinical, you may be on call every so often. We try to spread it around the entire team in a hospital, so that if someone is admitted at night or on the weekends and they need to be fed intravenously or through some type of a tube feed, the dietitian will be paid to come in and write those orders, get paid more when you get called out. But generally, the working hours are pretty standardized, and there are good job opportunities across the entire province. Um, and particularly in Alberta's rural communities, there's lots and lots of opportunities for jobs there. So, I can tell you a little bit about our program if there's not any questions that anyone has right now. Okay, let's do it. I am so proud of our program and I'm super excited to talk about it with you guys because it is really well rounded and gives you great opportunity. And so, our program is what is called in the world of health sciences an integrated degree and internship program. So, as I said, once you're admitted, your degree requirements include the completion of academic courses in the classroom, as well as that year of internship. So, everyone who goes through dietetics gets the opportunity to do that practicum learning that really, helps you build the network of people that will hire you, helps you really hammer down the skills that you need and how to translate what you learned in the classroom into, the job tasks. And so that makes things really easy for students. You're not having to worry about, finding an internship position on your own, which is the case for some programs outside of Alberta. Our program is a cohort program. We take a maximum of 50 students a year, and you move through things together as a group, which is really fantastic. It allows these students to build a support network of people who are at exactly the same place in academia that you kind of travel with across your journey. Students, have a good support of people to study with, talk with, have fun with. We have a pretty vibrant student association in nutrition and food science. The Nutrition and Food Science Student Association, works with students collectively and is run by students to just support everyone. And so what you see is some pretty close friendships and professional relationships between everyone in the cohort. And by the end of, your program, you really get to know the other people well. You may, be with them even in practicum. Sometimes the practicum placements are group things, and so you'll be together there and certainly in the workplace because it is a small group. And so you share a similar course pattern, and everybody just kind of moves through as the class of whatever. So right now, we're just about to send the class of 2025 out to practicum for the first time. And those guys all know each other really, really well, which is fantastic. Um, the other thing is, our program is really targeted. The University of Alberta does provide course or programs rather, I'm sorry, in broader nutrition and food science, also programming in food science specifically. In the dietetic specialization, this is a program that is specifically geared to, take students down the path towards careers in healthcare as registered dietitian. So the course selections and the content of the program directly relate to the knowledge and skills of registered dietitians at entry to practice. We work really closely with Alberta Health Services and with the College of Dietitians. I supervise a team of people who two of them are seconded to the university from Alberta Health Services. So we have a really good read of what employers are looking for in new to practice dietitians. And certainly during your internship, students build that network that allows them to move pretty seamlessly into the workforce, knowing that what they've learned in university is in fact what you need to know to practice. The other piece of our program, I mean, I've talked a little bit about the practicum piece, but the in-person learning, it's a requirement of our program. But those pieces in the classroom, I mean, I say classroom, but there's labs attached to lots of things, seminars where you really get to apply in a safe place, not the real world, some of those things. So we have a course going on right now. It's one of the senior courses before you go out to practicum, where the students are really focusing on learning how to counsel people, sort of the art of motivating people to change health behaviors. And those in-person learning sessions really can, make you feel more comfortable when you go to practicum. Students have the opportunity to visit the Human Nutrition Research Unit, which is part of our faculty. And there they, practice doing body composition testing on students, measuring metabolic rate, all of that kind of thing. So the opportunity to learn before you go to practicum as well is quite robust. So I'll tell you now a little bit about the internship piece, that's my team supervises this. So I love to talk about it. Our internship is just shy of a year. It's 44 weeks in total. And that is 7 internship practicum courses. They are part of your degree. In internship, you are paired with practicing dietitians, and learn from them. You have the opportunity to apply what you've learned in university and practice it in a real world setting with patients, clients, family members of patients and clients, or health promotion and disease prevention programs across the entire um, province of Alberta. Our internship as well has students, having the opportunity to be placed both in urban settings like Edmonton or Calgary, but also students complete at least one placement course in a rural area. And the reason that we do that is because it's quite the eye opener. I would like to tell you guys that healthcare in rural Alberta is equitable to what it is in Edmonton or Calgary. And unfortunately, in a lot of instances, that's just not the case. And we want dietitians to have that understanding of what the whole healthcare system looks like, and also to be able to be of service to people in rural communities where they may be, underserved by, the current structure of the healthcare system. The rural placements are really kind of neat. Students get to really embed themselves in the community. We have had students in rural placements join the hospital softball team. Some of them are doing dragon boat rowing in Lethbridge on the river in their spare time. And the part I love the best is in lots of small communities, they're so excited to have a student from the University of Alberta come to their community. They'll often promote your presence on their, in their local newspaper or their town social media or something like that. So they're very welcoming environments, and they're super excited. The community is super excited to have health students from the U of A, including our student dietitians there. We work with the Rural Health Professional Action Plan, which is a group in Alberta that helps find low-cost housing for visiting students in communities across the province. So we do work to help the students make that be, an affordable leap. Yeah, and you get out there. So students do have the chance to relocate to sites across the entire province. There's our home base in Edmonton, but literally, we place students across the entire province from the Northwest Territory border with Alberta to the border at Montana, and then either side into BC, across to the borders in BC and Saskatchewan, so that you do have that awareness of the difference in delivery of healthcare and how it's different for populations. Oh, sorry, I skipped too fast. I'll do that again. There we go. So graduates of our program are, like I said, really ready to enter the health workforce immediately. They're even before you've written the exam, you can be at work practicing until you write the exam on an entry practice permit. And we also have lots of grads who actually obtain employment before graduation. So the health agency, Alberta Health Services, Covenant Health, or someone else is holding a job for them because the demand is so great. So that's good news for our graduating students. Other post-graduation professional opportunities would include grad studies. Dietitians are kind of lifelong learners. I mean, my experience with dietitians and student dietitians is that we're kind of a really curious group. We like to learn. And so sometimes people go practice and then they come back and do a master's or a PhD in nutrition, metabolism, public health, or even an MBA. Some of our grads go on to private practice where they'll start their own business and be self-employed and offer nutrition counseling or other services. And there are dietitians in all levels of government and industry, working as policy analysts, government advisors, program managers, food experts. So if there aren't any questions, if there are questions, let me know. I can wait a sec. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about getting admitted to our program. So there is no direct entry into dietetics from high school. Instead, what students do is complete a pre-professional load of courses, which, for many people is their first year of university. Other people can arrange it in other ways. But before you apply, you have to have completed the courses that you see on the screen. So Bio 107, Chem 101 and 102, Chem 164, Chem 261, some credit work, 6 units in English, Nutrition 100, which can be taken online from the University of Alberta, and then Stats 151. And so everyone who's seeking admission needs to complete those courses first, and that makes you eligible to seek admission into the dietetic specialization. So admission is competitive. So what that means is essentially the minimum admission GPA is 3.0. When we work through things that higher, obviously the GPA that you have on those pre-professional year courses, the more likely your application is to be successful, because what we do is kind of rank people's academic standing and award more weight in the admissions process to students with a higher grade point average above that 3.0. And we calculate your GPA on the coursework in your most recent terms, so fall and winter, where you would have taken those pre-professional things. So we're into doing admission now for students would enter the program and it's September 2024. If you were thinking of applying for admission to start in September 2024, you'd need to have all of those pre-professional courses completed by the end of winter 2024, so the term that we're in right now. If you want to apply, it's a really simple process. You just head on over to uab.ca/apply, create an account, and get going on the application. There's lots of good prompts that can take you through it. And the program that you're looking for is BSc Nutrition and Food Science with specialization in dietetics. For us, the admission deadline where you have to have everything in is March the 1st. We need applicants as well as your GPA. We also look at references. So 2 references, they can be from anyone as long as they're not your family or your friends. So it could be a coach if you're into sport or dance or something like that. If you've worked in any kind of volunteer capacity, the coordinator would be fine. A work supervisor, teachers from high school or professors from university, really anyone who can kind of speak to your professional character. And so as long as they're not your family or your friends, that opens up a lot of people that could be your references, probably far more than I have listed here. So don't take my list as being the exclusive list. As long as it's not a family or a friend and it's someone that could speak about your work habits, your work ethic, how you communicate. It could be lots and lots of different people that could do that for you. And so the references, you'll put their names into, the launch pad, and they'll get an email notification to, complete a reference. You wanna speak to them before you put their name down because you don't wanna surprise anyone with a, "Hey, you're referencing Heidi" email that you didn't know was coming. And I would say just generally, not just for our program, with references, I think it's really important if students to get a good reference for anything, to have a conversation with the reference, tell them what you're doing. People authentically will want to help you, but if they don't know what you're doing, it's hard for them to help. So if you tell them what you're applying for, maybe some things you want them to highlight. If they're going to offer a reference, it'll really increase your chances of getting a reference that's really solid. And also, pick people that do know you because if they can't, the person doesn't know you well enough to answer questions that the reference form is going to ask, it kind of makes it like you don't have a reference because they keep having to write, oh, I don't know, or unable to assess, or something like that. So pick people you know, not your family and friends, let them know it's coming, and then brief them a little bit. And if you do that, the reference piece is pretty straightforward. The other piece that's due on March the 1st is called a letter of intent. It's not really a letter because you're going to fill in a form essentially. There's two questions. Um, they just ask you two things, really basic. Why do you want to be a dietitian? Like, what's your driver of coming into the program? And what made you, like, what are the aspects of the program at the U of A that really drew you to our program? And hopefully, I've highlighted some of those things for you tonight. Um, so you're going to complete that, and it's really us telling or you telling us a little bit about, why you want to do this. And we ask that because, to be honest, I mean, the program, as I mentioned earlier, really does tailor things to careers as dietitians. We just want to make sure that you have done some career exploration and you really have a good understanding of, what you're getting into, if you will. No surprises. The last piece is an interview that we do. It's called a multiple mini interview. These are really common in the health sciences. It allows us to do a holistic review where we look not only at your grades, but we also get to see you and hear your thoughts on things, and you get to talk and we get to kind of get a feel for you. Our MMIs, or multiple mini interview, um, is going to be done using a digital platform called Kira Talent. It's very simple to use, and so students that are invited to the MMIs will, be given lots of information and orientation into how to do the digital MMI. And we feel that the GPA is important, but we really believe that, the people qualities are important as well. So a high GPA alone will get you through the first stages. At the end of the MMI, we look at how your grades were, but we also look at how you performed in the multiple mini interview and get a really good sense. We're looking for those, for students who are, have those kind of neat social skills we talked about earlier, but also who have decent, grades so that you can deal with the material that you're going to be taking in university. If you did not complete education in Alberta, and there's any question about your spoken English proficiency, there is a requirement in our program. I would encourage you to speak with our advisors and recruiters. They can give you a better idea of what type of testing may be appropriate in your specific case in terms of a spoken English requirement. Dietitians do a lot of speaking and teaching, and so this becomes an important piece. Transfer is really complicated. I'm not going to speak to transfer tonight and transfer credit other than to say that it would, your credit would be assessed at the point of you being admitted. Um, Transfer from one university to the other is such an individual thing. It depends on what you took, who you are, where you were. And so those are questions, really, I can't stress enough. If you're thinking of transferring into the dietetic specialization, or that's what you're looking for, is really, talk to us, get some advising, talk to our recruiters who can look at your individual situation because there is not like definitely not a one size fits all. One thing to know, it is a cohort based program. So if you do transfer in and you get transfer credit, you stay in the same cohort. You don't advance more quickly to internship. You stay with your cohort for the ride. What we do instead is, direct you towards other elective courses that would, perhaps fill where you got the transfer credit so you can round things out. I'll finish off. I mean, there's alternate career paths that you can use your degree in dietetics with if you didn't really want to formally work as a dietitian in healthcare at the end. So lots of jumping off places from this degree program um, that can take you anywhere. Honestly, in my career as a dietitian alone, when I look at this list, I've worked in probably most of them, except I haven't been a doctor, OT, physio yet, but other than that, I think I've done work in all of the other areas, and I have lots of colleagues that share that because our training is, allows that flex. So you can kind of choose your own adventure when you finish your degree program, which is fantastic. And I have colleagues working on my team with me, but also in my broader network that are in every single one of these areas who are registered dietitians. So that brings me to the end of me talking. Here's information on how to connect with our advisors and recruiters. And I guess we'll just open it up to questions. I'll stop sharing and I can see what's happening.
Perfect. Well, yes, feel free to fill up that Q&A, everyone. There are a couple questions inside there, Heidi, if you'd like to take a look at that, see what you can
Sure.
answer.
Sure. Okay, so in regards to GPA, is the GPA only calculated based on the pre-professional courses? Or if you took them in the past and have additional courses since, will they count? That's a good question to talk to an advisor about. They're going to look at the last 24, which may be most of your pre-professional year, but some people might have filled in the pre-professional year with a few other things. So I think that that's definitely one of those ones where you want to tell your story to somebody so they can give you the personalized picture so you know what you're getting into. You're welcome. Is there an undergrad program that is preferred for a student to take to get into this? I'm going to tell you that I think that it's a good idea, if you can, to do your first year, the pre-professional year, at the University of Alberta in the General Nutrition and Food Science program. It gets you on campus. It allows you to come into the culture of nutrition and food, which is the basis for dietetics, um, early on. So I would say the BSc Nutrition and Food Science general program would be my best recommendation. If that's not possible, certainly like a lot of those pre-professional courses could be taken at a community college, and then you're going to, apply to the U of A to enter into dietetics. But I do think it's an easier ride for students, in my experience, if you can come and do that 1 year in the Nutrition and Food Science general program.
We'll give it, a couple more minutes. Let anyone that's slower typer feel free to type up your question. But while we're waiting, thank you so much, Heidi, for giving this presentation. I greatly appreciate it. I know myself, I learned a lot. Definitely heard a lot of things. I've had friends and colleagues who actually have graduated from the dietetics program as well, and they have loved their experience. So for all of you here, I hope we get to see you in the fall, or in the future at least, in this program.
Yeah, we would love to talk to people about it. For me, I mean, if I often sometimes get asked, what do you think is the best part of your program? And I'm kind of biased because I'm in charge of the internship. But honestly, just that ability to have a whole year where you're kind of helps you transform from being a student in the classroom to being like a health professional. Because otherwise it just seems like such a big leap. It might seem kind of daunting, but you get to be brought along like just like you're walking up a staircase. And then, when you're ready to jump off that top stair, there's actually a landing point called work, and it's not that big of a leap, right? And they pay you, so that's good too.
Exactly. Well, it seems like, oh, never mind. As I was saying that, there you go.
There you go. I see it. I'll pop her open. Um, For the application form, does the section for the letter of intent have a word limit? And where is the letter of intent in the application form? Yep, you will be able to see the application form when you start creating things. And I don't, I think the word limit is quite robust. Like I think it's around 700 words or something like that. So you should be able to really tell your story. I wouldn't worry about that. I have not heard from an applicant yet who didn't have time. And then the other question about if you get into AILS at the U of A for the program that I mentioned, the general BSc Nutrition and Food Science general program, then you apply for this program in the second year. You got it. That's exactly the pathway. So well done. I'm glad I got that across correctly. It's a bit confusing.
We have some attentive people, and I'm glad to hear that. So, with that being said, if there's any more questions, we'll leave it for another minute.
Oh,
Final
you're
call.
welcome.
There you go.
Oh, how many applicants? Okay, so let me ask you, do you have many applicants who already possess an undergraduate degree? You know what we do? We have students who will come from, sometimes come from psychology, and they have an interest in counseling and using psychology. But in a different way. So perhaps, for nutrition counseling, or they want to work in a blend of things where it's mental health plus clinical care, so an eating disorder type situation. We get students who have degrees in kinesiology and they want to work with athletes, so they're taking a little different path than me, but the same path to working in sport and with athlete groups. So they've got that strong background in kines and then going to transfer that into dietetics. So we definitely, see people coming from that are degree holders already coming into dietetics.
Next question is how many applicants do we take? I'm presuming that you mean for specifically the program.
Yeah, we'll take as many, I mean, like applicants can be as many people as want can apply. It's a 50-person maximum cohort. So out of whatever the applicant pool is, and it varies year to year, we're going to hone that down through the admissions process to the 50 successful at the end.
I feel like I've said this the third time, but final call for questions. If not, thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Heidi, for presenting and giving us all this wonderful information. If you have any further questions that you come across down the path, feel free to email us out. Feel free to reach out. We'll be here to help you out. And with that being said, have a wonderful night. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming by.
Thanks, everybody. That was great to have you here tonight. Thanks for taking the time on a cold night. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
See you later.